This week's epedition, epedition, this week's episode, I combined the word and episode, epedition. Maybe I'm going to stick with that. This week's episode of the Opportunity Hour, Donnie G, a recent guest of Furlough Friday 23. We talk about aviations and furloughs and everything, but we were blessed to get a little bit of a business talk in. I'm like, hey, let's have Donnie G on the Opportunity Hour. Started dgpilots.com, a Shopify account. And if you would kind of give us a quick 2-minute elevator pitch, what your business is and where it's at.
Alrighty, so thanks again for having me, Tyler. Really enjoyed Furlough Friday and glad to be back with you here this morning. So I'm the founder of DG Pilot, Aviation Collectibles and More, and we are a purveyor of gifts for the aviation travel enthusiasts. Now, I know that word purveyor sounds a little fancy, but it's not. It just kind of reflects what we do well, and that's sell aviation collectibles and aviation and travel inspired gifts. So I founded the business in 2015 in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I've been in business for about 5 years. We got a flagship retail store located in St. Paul, Minnesota as well. So we specialize in any sort of aviation collectible, from model airplanes to aviation hats, apparel. We have bags. So we kind of have a wide range of gifts. You can get a pillow that has your favorite worldwide travel destination or a future destination on it. So basically, if you love traveling, if you like aviation, we've got something for you. Whether you may be in aviation or just a fan of aviation. So launched the business. It's grown considerably here since 2015. We've seen our biggest growth years between 2018 and 2020. In 2018, we took a major milestone. Instead of just being a web-based retailer, which is how we started, and migrated into a 300 square foot warehouse in St. Paul, Minnesota, actually right in my neighborhood, which is kind of nice. I could walk to work. Now the walk's a little further, but not too much. And then we migrated into our very first actual retail store. We're located in the heart of downtown St. Paul in the Ham building. So yeah, we just are kind of like a cool destination store for those of you that like traveling and airplanes. I think destination stores are something that are becoming popular right now, and we wanted to be a little different. We felt Minneapolis, St. Paul has a big aviation community, both general aviation and then with commercial air carriers as well. So we wanted to provide to that market, and then the enthusiasts out there also.
So you started as a Shopify account, and you obviously have a real store in the heart of downtown St. Paul, as you said. Are you still utilizing Shopify?
We do, yeah. So Shopify is a wonderful program. For those of you who are and may not be as familiar with it, it is your one-stop shop for e-commerce, and they also have the ability for you to run your retail store through the same platform. So the one great thing about Shopify, you can build a website literally in a day. I think I built my first website in about a day and a half. And that includes uploading product inventory. That includes setting your pricing, setting up things such as your mailing list. And one of the nice things about Shopify is the integration it has with apps. You can get apps that help you with your shipping, inventory, that help you with marketing. Just the little things that are important to a small business, especially that of the e-commerce world. There's more of them revolve around shipping, things like drop shipping as well. So yeah, it's great. One of my favorite things about Shopify is the support network they provide in terms of helping entrepreneurs learn different tools that can enable them to be successful, such as marketing. One of the things that I did for our business, and I believe it really, really has helped us grow tremendously, especially in this year, is I kind of changed up our marketing routine. I was looking for programs for tips, advice, just a little bit of guidance on how to market to people. And so logged on to Shopify Academy, which is this wonderful library where you can find all the resources to help you as an entrepreneur. And I took a class on marketing and advertising. Learned about a cool graphic design program called Canva, and that had actually allowed us to enhance some of our advertising. So Shopify, once again, is great for a host of things and just helping you grow as an entrepreneur. And then they have really, really good support as well in terms of any sort of technical difficulties that arise for your site, and things of that nature.
So when Shopify comes with that level of support, what is their business model? Are you paying like a subscription fee, or do they get a cut of each transaction? How's that work?
So basically, Shopify has different plans, and I think their plans are pretty much tailored to the size of your business. They have a starter plan, which I believe runs around $29, all the way up to an enterprise plan, which I believe is a couple $100s a month. So that allows you to have different features, access to things such as priority shipping rates. So you get really, really good rates when it comes to shipping. And that's something that's definitely important in the e-commerce business as well, keeping your shipping cost as low as possible, but making sure they're as efficient as possible. So the more you pay for with the plan, the more enhanced shipping services you get. So the more expensive plan, you're going to get better shipping rates, deals like that. If you not only run an e-commerce site, but you have a retail store as well, let's say you have 4 or 5 employees, you're able to have accounts for different employees for your point of sale or retail store as you expand off of that basic starter plan into the more advanced plans as well. And then Shopify does take a monthly fee as well as a transaction fee. It's right in the neighborhood of, I believe, 2 to 2.5% plus a few cents on top of that. So that's where their money in support. And it's really, really nice because they take care of all of the billing for shipping. You merely get a bill at the end of each cycle once you spend so much shipping to tell you, hey, here are your shipping charges. These are your orders that shipped with those charges. And it's just a really cool integral platform for all of that stuff. And I really, really like using them so far. So there's others out there as well. There's Squarespace is a very, very popular one. There's WooCommerce. I believe Wix is another one. So you're seeing a lot of companies dive into the e-commerce market in terms of being able to have a web hosting platform like Shopify because of the amount of e-commerce businesses and growth of sales related businesses on the World Wide Web.
Are you utilizing drop shipping?
So that is something we do not do. We do not drop ship. And that is something that I'm very, very proud of, is the personal touch that we provide with every order. I think providing the customer with the best experience is something that one looks for every day. That's certainly what we try to do. So, for example, with our model airplane lines, one of the things that we do is we actually open the box and inspect every single model that comes into our warehouse before it goes back out. So we won't ship it if it's damaged, if it doesn't meet our quality control standards, if the paint is smudged, if it's missing an antenna. Our goal is to provide the customer with the best experience, and that starts with providing them with the best quality product. And so usually we get a shipment in. The average shipment we get is usually 7 to 8 boxes. We go through all those airplanes usually in about a day and inspect them and then turn them right around. So we take extra care in the packaging. We bubble wrap the items and package them either with paper or foam peanuts. And then my favorite part of the experience is actually writing the customer thank you note, thanking someone for their business, because we certainly realize that within the aviation collectibles industry, especially the model airplanes, there's a lot of competition out there. So I think it's the little things you can do to set yourself apart. And I feel like in today's society, that personal touch has been lost to some degree. A lot of times you don't interact with a person. You don't see them face to face, but I feel like if you can still provide them with some sort of personal touch, even though you may not be interacting with them face to face, then that's certainly something that you can provide in terms of a great experience.
That kind of leads me to the vendor conversation. How did you seek out your vendors, and how did those early conversations go? Told them what you were looking for?
So yeah, I actually had to do a little bit of research to seek the vendors. One of our most popular product lines is actually a company called Gemini Jets Models. They're based in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I merely did a search and came up through their website of a list of distributors as well as other retailers and things like that. So I actually found several vendors through them and was able to reach out, and pretty easy to set up an account with the vendors. Moving forward at the time, everyone was looking for new retailers to sell their products and whatnot. So we got in at the right time, I feel like, because your timing is impeccable. I know it sometimes vendors will limit the amount of retailers that their products are available through, just so they don't have an overabundance and everyone is still able to get an adequate amount of products. So when setting up vendor accounts, I can definitely recommend having a tax ID number and a copy of your LLC certificate or LLC certification, whatever your state requires for your business to show some sort of proof of incorporation or that it exists. So I just handed that over with my tax ID number, and boom, it was set up. Placed my first order. We definitely started with a lot smaller quantities than we do now. Gosh, and it was really, really cool. Actually, I was in the store yesterday, and we filled up a UPS cart. And I remember when it was a big day for us to ship out one box, and to fill up a cart, it's kind of like a cool milestone to see. So we filled up a UPS cart and then a USPS cart as well. So those are always exciting milestones as you watch your business grow. But I think one thing that's important too with vendors is to maintain a good relationship with them, to check in with them regularly, to let them know how you're doing, to see if they can give you any feedback in terms of products, which may be hot, which may be popular, and for you to give them feedback as well. I think it's a two-way street, and you can learn constructively through one another through those good conversations and those regular conversations as well.
Back in 2015, started this. Were you thinking, hey, I want to sell aviation products, airplanes, and the t-shirts and the pillows, and then you're like, I'm going to, I need to search out Shopify, for example? Or were you like, hey, this Shopify e-commerce model is pretty neat, I wonder what I should sell? And due to your passion for aviation, you're like, oh, I'll just sell this aviation stuff. How did that those early stage brainstorming sessions go, and what inspired you to go this direction?
So it's kind of funny. I always tell everyone I totally got into the aviation gift business by chance. I kind of got into it by accident, and I'll go ahead and blame my dad for this accident, actually, because my dad is a big aviation enthusiast. And I went home for a visit one weekend, and he took me down the basement. He says, hey, I got a little secret to show you. And he pulls out these plastic bins of these cool model airplanes. And I hadn't collected a model airplane in years. I would buy, occasionally models that I had actually flown the real aircraft. But he starts pulling them out, and I'm looking at these things, and I'm like, whoa, these are really, really cool. They're really, really detailed. And so anyways, we went over to a local hobby shop, and he's like, hey, I want to get a model of the aircraft that you fly. And so got one of those. A couple weeks later, I went back. He wanted to get another model of an aircraft that I was flying at the time as well, and it's still flying today. And about 2 weeks after that, we kind of had a conversation, and it kind of came to the mutual understanding that we both were thinking about actually trying this as a business idea. And so my dad's part owner of the company, he owns 10% of the company, Delta Gulf Enterprises, which is the parent company for DG Pilot. And so we actually started selling on eBay. We got our first vendor contract set up, and then first models ordered and things like that. And we're in eBay probably for about a year to year and a half before we went onto Shopify. And one of the things that I wanted to do as far as eBay, I felt like the fees on eBay were very, very high, and the market was so competitive that your margins were a lot less just selling on eBay. Plus, I figured I could hopefully capture maybe a different market by trying Shopify. And so I learned of Shopify actually from a coworker of mine. And we were having a conversation at work, and mentioned Shopify was a platform that he was using to sell T-shirts. He lived over in Paris, France. So he was telling these artsy T-shirts about Paris, and showed me his website. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And he's like, you know what? The best thing is it did not take long to design it all. So long story short, that's kind of how I got into DG Pilot. And now I'm here. I never would have envisioned myself owning a hobby store or a toy store. I used to always go into toy stores when I was younger, and I'm like, man, this is kind of cool. You know, I think we all have that like kind of nostalgia feel when we go in and we see something that we like. And so it's really, really cool when we have customers and some of our younger customers that come in, and they're just so excited to come get a model airplane or a Cessna hat or a NASA backpack. So to see that excitement transfer from generation to generation is really, really cool. And I think one of the things that I also enjoy most about having a brick and mortar store is actually having a physical store location for people to go to. Because you don't see a lot of hobby shops out there. A lot of them have disappeared. I can remember going to several train stores in Kansas City growing up as a kid. They're no longer there. And it was a treat to go on Saturday or Sunday and get a train set or something for your train layout, and you could get model airplanes. That's where I started collecting them. I collected the 1 to 600 scale Shabak metal airplanes. I got to find my TWA fleet. It's sitting somewhere in one of my mom's like trunks probably.
It makes sense because you had the warehouse. So it's like, why not have your real estate serve two purposes and have a storefront, especially hype area like that. That's feel like that's a solid move on your part. You mentioned margins with eBay. What kind of realistic margins could somebody expect if they were to get involved with Shopify? What makes and what's worth your time and what's not a margins perspective?
So I'll give an example. I'll break it down in terms of cost and more so the dollar amount than percentage. But as far as like eBay, I believe when you're starting out, takes a fee somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12%. So you've got to factor that 10 to 12% into your fee. If you do free shipping, for example, we used to do free shipping. You factor that cost in. You've got to factor the cost of the product as it comes to you, as well as the shipping supplies you utilize when you're moving that product out the door. So once you incorporate all of those, which we had early on, our margins were a lot lower. Even starting out just a few dollars to give an example. Yet there are competitors, and not to discredit any competitors or anything like that, that will take that route because they believe in selling volume. They believe that
Sure,
you can sell more and more and more and more and more, even though you're making less. That's going to drive up your profit margins. But one thing you've got to ask yourself is how much is your time worth as well? Because your time is certainly investment into your business. If you're spending a lot of time, energy, but you're not getting a lot out of it, that I think over a certain amount of time can be discouraging, and I think that causes people to leave the e-commerce world when they don't see those margins right then and there. But I think what you've got to recognize and realize is that you got to reward yourself. I do. It's pretty common for me to do 10 to 14 hour days working, and if I still made $1 off of a product or $2 or $3, I don't know if it necessarily be worthwhile. But I'd say the margins are you can expect to give. I'll shift now to percentages, I guess, but 20-30%, somewhere in that neighborhood, all in all, probably every month. I will tell you, everybody knows this about clothes and apparel. The markup is higher on those, so the margins are definitely higher on clothes and apparel. So, but one thing I've learned in being in the business and in reverting back to the competitiveness of the business. A lot of times, email newsletters will be sent out, and you'll get an email newsletter for a company, and they'll be giving you this percentage off. Another one will get that percentage off. And it's not always the best to be necessarily the cheapest. People will pay more if you provide a good service versus someone that does not. So that's also important. But really, also always consider your time as part of your margin of investment too, because starting a small business does require a lot of time. I kind of like joke that compared to my regular career, which I love near and dear. I said, man, retail is probably the hardest thing I've done since I got into careers. I think flying has its moments as well, but retail, it's a grind day in and day out, and to stay up on things like social media and marketing, keep your websites updated. It's a probably a 6 day a week operation, at least 5 to 6 days. So that's why I cherish Sundays and watching football, especially this time of the year.
That makes sense. One thing that I want to touch on is the hustle, because you're obviously hustling. It's 9:30 your time right now on a Saturday morning, and we're knocking this conversation out so you can go in and staff the retail shop. You mentioned here that every product that comes in, writing a thank you note. You just mentioned 10 to 14 hour days, with the social. To run a small business, it's a lot more work than somebody else, as you've essentially just explained. And you wouldn't be doing it without the passion. And I think that's your tool.
That's it.
And the one thing that you briefly mentioned it a few minutes ago, you're doing all of this while you have a career at a legacy airline. How do you balance your schedule between running a business and working for an airline?
So that is a very, very good question. I think the key to balancing time between both is really planning. One of the things that I had to get, and I recently acquired it, was a journal. But even before the journal, I had to schedule and plan for things. Like if I knew a shipment was coming in and I was going to be on the road, I had to make sure that shipment still got out and those products still got out. So we do have a staff of 3 employees, all part-time employees that work at our retail stores / warehouse. And so planning is the key. So making sure that and those orders get in and you're on the road, that they're getting out, making sure that whomever is in charge of the operation when I'm away from it has a clear set, I call it a game plan. I love using a lot of sports terminology. in the business world. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of interchangeable between the two. But so I come out with a game plan every single week, and it's basically kind of a target of what product we can expect to come in, what orders we can expect to ship out, what kind of social media marketing, what kind of marketing twist we have going on for the week. And that really kind of helps with the planning, because our employees are all trained on how to do our social media, our newsletters. So they can actually do a lot of that marketing. They're trained on the shipping, of course. They know how to inspect the products when it comes in and it's shipped back out. So yeah, I would just say planning, planning, planning. Now, I will say there are some times when I get to a layover. I love European layovers. I do a lot of those. I was doing a lot of those pre-COVID and hope to do some when we emerge from COVID as well. But you do have some working layovers. I remember I got to London one morning and literally had a cup of coffee when I got to the hotel. And this was after being up all night and had to get a product release out. And so everyone is always working so quickly to get these releases out, to be the first one with the releases out. And so I worked for like 3 hours and then slept all day long, of course. But yeah, it requires time and effort even on the road. But the one thing that's been nice about COVID and the silver lining, it's given me a lot of time to clean up those areas that I didn't necessarily have a game plan for. Like making sure our social media, our marketing was consistent, making sure to know what orders were scheduled to go out on a certain week. Just having things fluid in the operation. So when I do go back to flying more, that I can literally leave, go on a trip, and come back, and everything can still be running. And I really think it takes a good employee. I got to give a hats off to my employees. They do a great job day in and day out. They care about the operation. That's certainly something we look for when we do hire, is somebody that has a passion for aviation or aerospace, someone that knows the product, because you're not only selling, the physical item, you're selling that experience as well, based on your expertise. So that's really something we look for. I've been fortunate to have some great employees that are on our team and really can run the operation when I'm away.
As you mentioned, your employees, it seems like your number one vetting metric is a passion for aviation, because that's what you're selling. You also said that it sounds like you trust them to do the social media stuff, the QA process. One thing that I can tell you that I've learned with, just this podcast and everything, the social media thing, there's an art to it. We're learning a lot, but it's a slow grind. There's a lot of tricks of the trade, and staying authentic as opposed to spammy, that's also a key in the social media house. When you were looking for your employees outside of that passion for aviation, were you looking for somebody that had a certain skill set in the social media realm per se, or is that something that you taught them? Because your social accounts are refined, and you can see that there is a strategy and a great execution behind that.
That is certainly something that we look for in the hires, especially I think our most recent employees that have come on board. We really wanted them to have some sort of experience with Instagram or Facebook. However, with that being said, I do have some employees that have learned how to do that on the job, and I've taught them. We'll go through and spend a lot of times a half a day just talking about social media and the importance of reaching the customer, how to reach the customer, what to say, what not to say. That's very important too, with social media. So yeah, if they come with a willingness to learn, we're willing to help them grow as employees and as individuals as well. So I've watched our very first employee. He's grown, and I won't get into ages, but he's our youngest employee that we have. Um, and he's still going through schooling. So that kind of gives you an idea of his age, but without telling the age. But he came with a willingness to learn, a set of just really open ears to listening, and he can upload our products and he can put our newsletter together. And that is something, if they come with the right attitude and willingness to learn, we are willing to teach. Because some of the things that I want to teach as a business owner, besides running a business, are life skills. That being communication, how to make decisions, how to interact with the customer. Um, so it was funny because I was at a show last year in Chicago, a model airplane show, and someone came up to me and they said, "Yeah, I noticed that you don't have prices on the boxes. You're not going to sell anything today." And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's a reason why we don't have prices on boxes. And I've often heard that, people are afraid to ask a price when there is no price. But one of the reasons, I'll let you in a little marketing tactic, why we don't have prices in the boxes is because we train our employees to engage with the customer. So we are usually the ones that foster the conversation when they come in. And we usually tell them that, hey, there's a reason we don't put prices on the boxes to preserve the condition of the box, number one. But number two, the reason they don't know why we don't put prices on the boxes is we want to engage and have that conversation with the customer about the product that they're looking at. So that's important too. So that is a marketing tool within itself. So that's something we've taught. But yeah, I want just someone to come who works at DG Pilot to be able to learn those basic skills. And even if we teach you Excel or Microsoft Word, that you've got something, you can take that skill with you, and it remains with you for a lifetime. The skills are something that no one can take away from you. Once you've learned them, you can only refine them. So that's kind of the platform we want to provide for our employees at DG Pilot and Delta Gulf Enterprises.
And that says a lot about you as well. You've got this young kid, part-time employee, who you have essentially entrusted to represent you, even when you might not be reachable on an airline trip, for example. And that type of trust fosters growth, and I guarantee you this kid's not at level of trust working some other retail job at the mall, for example. Every question has to go through multiple levels of supervision, and you, the owner of the company, is like, hey, this is how we operate. You have the hard feature and you, and now you trust them to represent you, and that's quite impressive. And I that might be the takeaway of this whole conversation today.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned as a business owner is you have to let the creativity of your employees shine. One thing I love about being part of a team is everyone is good ideas, and everyone may have a technique or a way that they're used to doing something. Um, and I think the best thing you can do as a business owner is listen to your employees and collaborate with them, because they may have an idea that takes your company to the next level. Um, or they may be able to see something in the day-to-day operation that you may not see from the big picture side of things as a business owner. So listening to them, and just knowing, letting them know that they're valued, um, providing that open line of communication. One thing I always do is I tell my employees, I said, hey, if you have any suggestions, like how we can get better, like let me know. And we go through and we have regular conversations about those things. Can we improve the way something's listed on Shopify? Can we improve, a product description, things like that? So I want to listen to employees, and I think that's something that's hard at times for a business owner to do, is to let the employees run with their creativity, because a business becomes your baby, your brand becomes your baby, because you watch that business grow from its infancy all the way to its adulthood. Um, Whatever the appropriate stage may be or stage name may be for a business that has matured in terms of growth. So yeah, and an open line of communication with your employees is key, and making sure that they feel valued, because your employees at the end of the day, they're your best asset. They're the frontline person that the customer will see the operation day to day more so than the owner. So a lot of times I just when I go in, we have a little mezzanine level at our retail store, which we use for shipping. I have a little office up there as well. So I sit up there and I let the employees run the show, and I kind of enjoy the view. Um, and then one thing I'm always a big proponent of is just trying to get better each and every day, and tying back to the skill set, and providing employees with some sort of learning experience. So let's say something doesn't go well or as planned, or orders get shipped to the wrong customer. We go through and we clean it up. We talk about it. We debrief about it and say, hey, what went well, and what could we have done better? Is there something in the process that we need to clean up to help that employee with their efficiency, or is there something we did from the owner's perspective that you know um, we can definitely clean up? So I try not to put it like blame on anyone. I try to make things a learning experience.
And that's definitely something that serves aviation world well, brief. And applying that to a retail gig, it would probably serve a lot of companies well to incorporate brief. Like you said, you don't have to sit there and throw blame. Like, mistakes happen, and it can be a learning experience, all parties involved. And their mistakes are ever going to lead to the implosion of the company. So when mistakes happen, lots of times they can lead to long-term growth.
Yeah, they definitely can. You can always pull something out of mistakes. I think about like in my flying career, a particular story. We were coming in to Minneapolis, and I was flying with a fairly new hire pilot, in the company 3 or 4 months, and we're coming in, find this visual approach for landing, and he was high on the visual approach. So I talked him down, just step by step. And we got on the ground into the gate. He's like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I said, "That's okay." I said, "Why are you so sorry, man?" And he says, "Well, I disappointed you." I said, "You didn't disappoint me." I said, "Remember, we all have to learn to do visual approaches in a turbojet aircraft, and that's probably the hardest maneuver you're ever going to learn. And I had to learn too, and I had somebody teach me. So I just was teaching you, and part of paying it forward, you're going to go when you're in the captain's seat and teach that to someone else." So we talked about it, and I could tell just the shift in his attitude after that, because I believe that he had flown with someone before. I think that hadn't been as accommodating. That was more just critical, you know, and the beat you up type of mentality, where you just criticize, criticize, criticize. There's always some praise too. You got to bring with the criticism. And I'm gonna go back to Andy Reid. I had to integrate a little bit of the Chiefs in here, but
Here
one
we
thing
go.
Andy does, if you watch his press conferences, is he will always take the blame for something. He never blames it on players. He never blames it on names. And he says, "Hey, we'll go ahead. We'll clean it up. I'm going to clean it up. That's my fault." Um, and so that's kind of the mentality and perspective I take in business as well, as whether you want to call me the owner, the manager, a head coach. That's my job as well, is to go in and clean things up and help our team get better. So yeah, I will never forget that moment. and I remember going into New York LaGuardia too, and the Expressway Visual 3-1 approach, and the captain taught me to fly that, and I think the winds were gusting like 25 knots, but it was Christmas Eve, it was howling, it was just one of those nights, and someone taught me that, and then I was able to go back and do that again to with a new hire. So just making people feel valued, because I feel like sometimes the environment, depending on who you're with, that can be a confidence killer, and you don't want to kill anybody's confidence. You want to take it and build it up, and help them know that they're good, because they wouldn't be there if they didn't pass the required training, things like that. So I take that same mentality into the
Yep.
business world.
You mentioned earlier paying it forward. On Furlough Friday, we discussed, your vision as supporting, the growth in aviation, and showing that there is opportunity in aviation. Would you like to go into that a little bit, and your vision impacts where your company wants, what it represents outside of selling model airplanes and t-shirts?
Yeah, sure. Love this question. This is one of my favorite parts of the business, and that we're kind of growing. And right now, we're seeing a lot of new opportunities and ways to support the aviation community, which is exactly what I want to do. Is I don't want to just be a hobby shop where you come in to and you buy a model airplane or a T-shirt or a destination pillow or a Pan Am mug. I also want to be a place where you can be inspired. If you like aviation, you can ask questions about aviation. You can be encouraged to pursue careers in aviation and aerospace, because I think that's one of the things, in addition to being the owner and having a career in flying, is a lot of times people ask me about flying and how to get into it, and am I taking the right steps? Especially the younger generations. And I want to be a place that encourages and inspires and celebrates aviation. One of the taglines we were kind of looking at before we got into our new one with Purveyor of Gifts for the Aviation and Travel Enthusiasts. And this is kind of a secondary tagline we still use to some degree, but we want to celebrate the magic of flight and inspire travel, because flying is a freaking awesome thing that we can get in this airplane, fly somewhere, be in a totally different destination in a matter of minutes. So we want to celebrate that and show people it's cool, it's fun, it's an attainable goal. So that's really one of the things I try to do. If somebody has a question, I answer it for them within reason, of course, and what I can share to provide them, and things that have helped me along the way. So part of our mission now is we want to support organizations in the community that encourage youth to get involved in aviation and aerospace. I do a lot of work with OBAP, the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. I've sat on the board of directors. I've been an ACE camp director, which are week-long camps to immerse high school students in careers in aviation and aerospace. So I always want to be able to encourage someone, because going back to my dad's story, I never realized that he was so passionate about aviation until we got into this model airplane business, and several other conversations were kind of fostered by these model airplanes. But he told me one afternoon that he really had wanted to become a pilot, but he didn't know how. He was an African American man growing up in Texas in the 1960s, and he says, "You know what, son? I just was unsure. I wrote airlines. I called them. I never heard anything back." And so that really touched me near and dearly in the heart, because I don't ever want someone to read about aviation and not know how to get into it. I want to replace the how with showing them the world of opportunity that exists in aviation aerospace. So that's really, really my driving force is him each and every day. I was kind of always wondering why he wanted my flight numbers to track me on FlightAware, but I realized after a long time that he's really living the dream that he was not able to pursue through me vicariously. And he was always sharing photos of me on the road, things like that. I'm like, Dad, why are you like posting that I'm in Paris right now? Like, Instagram's a huge world, you know? Like,
He's proud, man. He's proud.
he's proud, and I realized that is a father's love right there, and his passion, which makes me like even more excited about it and to inspire the next generation. It's really cool. I took him on a trip a couple years ago, and he rode around the country with me on transcon flights for 4 days, and it was awesome. You really seen him there. That made me proud. So yeah, we want to inspire. Matter of fact, we just got our new thank you notes. We did a little trial run with them. And on the back of our new thank you notes, the thank you note actually looks like a boarding pass that you receive, kind of a
Cool.
vintage boarding pass, like the 1980s. But on the back, we have a picture of our retail store, and we have learn to fly at the top. So we want to, someone to pick up that brochure, and they may turn it over to the back and say, you know what, these model airplanes are really cool. I'd like to fly one or see myself in the seat of one of these days. And that's what we want to
Sure.
see. We want to see more people that get excited about aviation, and it's truly an awesome lifestyle career that we have, and the opportunity that it brings as well.
I wonder if you could start a campaign with DG Pilot, like a learn to fly campaign. Like I'd provide a resource for people, just have an open forum for questions, and bring people to your flat platform based on that alone. Because like you said, aviation is not an easy career field to break into. There are different avenues you can go, and you don't really understand. I remember when I was in college and I was migrating. This is shortly after September 11th, and airline pay had plummeted. You would hear how much airline pilots were making, but there's resources now that break down how much you're making at the airlines based on seniority. But back then, those resources weren't readily available. And I remember doing these spreadsheets comparing military pay to airline pay and what's the best route to go. And, that's important when you're spending 6 figures to get from 0 hours to 1,500 hours to become a P. And that guidance would serve a lot of people well. There's Google and there's YouTube, but to have a two-way conversation with a legacy airline pilot, I think there's a lot of value in that too. And it could almost be like a 2-armed marketing scheme, but just something that I was thinking about when you were talking, kind of, your passion kind of fits both bills. But is there anything that we didn't discuss that you wish we would have gone down a certain path? We're getting a little low on time. I know you have to go staff a store here shortly, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would like to give you the opportunity to bring up anything maybe that
I think we covered most of it. I'm thankful for another great time with you here today on the show. I just love what you guys are doing, and the innovation you're doing in terms of the aviation community, and really how you're inspiring those to go out and be bold and be creative, and really see where your imagination can take you in terms of opportunity. I would leave people with this thought, to just say, hey, if there's something that you're interested in doing, put your mind to it, do a little research, figure out what it takes to get into that market, whether it's starting a new business, and that the business world, it's okay to take a risk. I think that's one of the things that people are more and more afraid of is the risk and failing. And it's okay to fail. There's days where we go out and something's happened with the business, or something where it doesn't go as planned, and it's not necessarily a failure, but it's just a room for opportunity and growth. Um, I'm tremendously glad that I've sought this opportunity to be an entrepreneur through the accident of my dad, of course, and him kind of encouraging me to get into it. So I would just say go for it. Really, the sky's the limit. Working in aviation, we have a lot of time on our hands. I tell everybody, aviation is literally like the best part-time job in the world that's a full-time job, because having 15, 16 days off a month on a regular schedule, got a lot of downtime, and you can only do so much Netflix or Hulu, or I can't remember the NBC one. Is it Peacock now? I think is the the new NBC streaming service. So there's
Okay.
an opportunity to use that time to do something, and in supplementing an income that is already great and nice and comfortable. It's good, and it can also help you in times of a downturn, when the industry does see pay cuts and things of that nature. It can be just another source to help you generate, grow, build that wealth, build that lifestyle, or retirement you're looking for. So, and I would say stick with it. I think we've kind of talked about how um, sometimes demanding being a business owner can be. Um, so my last probably words of advice would be, just remember, when you get up every day, it's a brand new day. It's a brand new day for new opportunity, for new horizons, for new milestones. And whatever happened yesterday, good or bad, it's still a brand new day. So I've learned to kind of live in the moment. Um, Being a business owner will teach you that, because if you have a bad day of sales, doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have a bad day tomorrow. It's a whole new day of opportunities. So um, take that mentality in moving forward, whatever your aspirations or goals may be. And yeah, I just say just go for it, and have fun with it along the way too, because it's a beautiful thing to watch the business, as we talked about, from its infancy grow, and something that's yours. One of the um, things I love doing, especially right now, we have to actually decorate our storefronts for the holidays. Is I love just leaving work, and I'll take a drive around the block, and I'll pass my storefront and see the storefront and sign all lit up, and man, that's mine. I built this baby, and that's a pretty cool thing to see at the end of the day. Is your hard work paying off?
That's amazing. And I don't even want to try to follow that up. So with that, Donnie G, the man, the myth, the legend, founder and owner of dgpilot.com. Check him out. Go buy some stocking stuffers, some Christmas gifts.